Hey, I'm Enzo. I'm the founder of Accounting Pros, and I'm here to talk to you about something very important, which is backing up your Make.com scenarios. So, story time. I accidentally deleted a very important scenario last week or the week before, and I was really lucky that I had a backup saved just sort of accidentally. What I realized is I needed to have something that would keep all of my backups in one place and would also have version control because if I'm on version 20 of an automation and I only have version 1, then that doesn't really do me any good either. So I wanted to make sure that I have version 1 through 20 backed up every single day if there are changes made. And I can't take full credit for this idea. I did see a video that Andy O'Neill, who runs the Co-Build Collective, which is a great community of Make.com nerds, but he actually created a YouTube video that walked through how to do exactly this. However, I did want to take it a little bit further because I use Notion for all of my internal knowledge, and it's just a way for me to stay completely organized. So if there's any Notion nerds here, this is going to be a great video for you. But I wanted to also back everything up into a Notion database that connects to my client database and my automation cost database. And there's a lot of different things that I connect because I wanted to have a complete system that kept everything housed in one place. And I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't creating 1,000 backups that I have to go search through. So I wanted to make it as simple to understand as possible while also giving me a little bit of peace because if I delete something important later, I'll really kick myself because doing it once, that was really dumb, but doing it twice, shame on me. So I'm going to walk you through this Make.com scenario. I'd love for you guys to tell me if you have accidentally deleted anything important and what you've done to solve this, or if you found any other ways to back up your Make or N8N scenarios, because I think it's important that we don't lose all the hard work that we have put into something because it's just so silly to not plan ahead. But I say this as I've already done that. But anyway, I'm going to share my screen. The first step in this scenario is to list all of your scenarios. And I know this is like so incredibly meta, like a scenario for your scenario for your scenario. But let's go ahead and just run this module once and I'll show you what that looks like. So here I see bundles of information. So I've got my team information. I know who created this scenario because I have their ID, their name, and their email address. I know what folder this is in, and we save all of our client automations into a folder specific for them, which you'll find is going to be useful later. And then I have the last edit date and time. I have the name of the scenario, and you'll notice that I have emojis in all of my scenarios. And that's because we use this to signify to each other what is going on in the scenario. So in this case, this is a check mark, which says that it's on, and it's not like under construction or anything like that. So if we see a scenario that's off and it has a check mark, that could mean that it broke. Next is this calendar. So we just run this on a predictable basis. In this case, it's just Monday through Friday, so we can save on operations. And then there's a little cactus emoji, and that is my teammate Ivy. She's a cactus, and I'm the moon face that you'd see like right here. That's my little moon face, my favorite emoji, in case you're wondering. This is the next time it will execute. This is the ID. This tells me that it's scheduled indefinitely, and it looks like we might have some days of the week. Yep, we're only running this one Monday through Friday as well. And that's really useful because, no need to use extra operations when you don't have to. This is the last person to update it, and this tells me what's used in this package. So I'm not actually doing anything in this first step. I'm just gathering information. And the next thing that I'm doing is I know that Ivy created this scenario, so I need to switch the user information inside of here into user information that I can add into Notion. So it takes her email address and says, if you see this, then change that to the user ID inside of Notion because it's not like a one-to-one match. I can't say update Ivy at or attribute this to Ivy at because it requires that unique ID, which I think is great because email addresses change, unique IDs don't. And then the next thing here is to grab that scenario in a JSON file. So it's taking the scenario ID from the first step and saying, just download it. I love that we can return the blueprint in other ways, but I do want to upload this later because it is super easy to re-upload a JSON file into Make if you have accidentally deleted it or you want to share your scenario with somebody else. That's like a much nicer situation. But I want to actually grab the JSON. And I'm going to run this module only. And here it's going to tell me some information about what we had just found. This is searching a database of backups, and it found something because it had the scenario ID tied to it. So you can see here that the user has already been attributed. So that's that unique user ID. So instead of being like Ivy at or Enzo at, and then I have last edited at, it tells me what database this is part of and any other properties that are important. So maybe I wanted to look at like scenario create date. I have other relations in here. I even have the client that it relates to, which is cool because in this next step, it will search for the client. If this is a brand new automation, I want to make sure that this is going to be attributed to the client because I have a whole other automation that will calculate the monthly cost of my scenarios when they're running, my operational costs. So every time that Make does something, it costs me 0.0019 cents or something. But that can really add up, especially if you have a lot of scenarios for clients or running things really often. So I want to make sure that I completely understand the cost. And if there's any way for us to reduce that cost, great. If we need to begin passing this along to our clients, which currently we do not, because it is very, very inexpensive. At most, I think we're spending like $6 for a client in a month. So not terrible, but I want to be able to see a history over time. So attribute this to the client so I know how many automations we're running for them, but also how much those are costing us each month. And then next, it's taking that file here and it's uploading it to Drive. So I have a folder called make.com blueprint backups. It's naming the file, and I'm also trimming out the emojis because I don't want this to have these 3 emojis starting everything up. It's really ugly to do that, I think, but I do need it. So it's trimming that information out, and then it's grabbing that blueprint and just dumping it in Google Drive. If you go into this little previous versions icon here, if you click it, you can actually go backwards in time here as well. So I might actually never use the versions that are inside of Google Drive. Maybe I'm only going to use the most recent version, but it's possible that something goes crazy and I'm missing a version that's very important here. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I'm not losing that data and that I have access to it. So will I need it? Probably not, but the one time that I need it and I don't have it, I'm going to kick myself. And then the next step here is to add the page into the database, which is the list of all my backups. So it's going to take a second to load because Notion takes forever to load inside of Make. When eventually it does load, I'm like, God, I've been waiting for 5 minutes, but I'll pause and then come back. So when I'm creating this new scenario, I'm also stripping out the emojis here because I don't need to have that in here. The created time just matches 1-to-1 with the information that came over in the scenarios. And then the client ID comes from this search a client here. So because I found it, it's going to attribute that to the client here. And if you'll see here, searching for the client, I actually have all of the folder IDs on my client database, which is how I'm able to find this. So if the client name is Acme Corporation inside of my client list in Notion, and it's Acme Corporation DBA hamburgers or whatever, and I do a name search, it might not work as well. So when we create those folders, it actually automatically adds the folder ID inside of their client profile inside of Notion. So that's how I'm matching it, in case you're wondering. And back into the create a database item, scrolling further down, this grabs the blueprint file ID, and that is coming from the Google Drive step here, because later I'm going to need this file ID if I want to update the file as a new version in the exists route. I don't want to have to look everything up again. I've done myself a solid by saying, I already know this file ID because I've already uploaded the file. Why do I have to have another step for searching it later? It's right here. So I'm thinking about how can I reduce my total automations and just make my life easier. Then I add how often it's scheduled. Is it indefinite? Is it a few times a week? Then I'm adding the scheduling type and the automation owner, which is coming from an output here. So again, we've got that owner. And then this is the last edit date. This is the last edited by. This is the scenario ID. This is the URL. I probably could have grabbed the URL maybe from the list step. I don't know if it actually has it there, but with Make, it has the URL is going to be exactly the same for all of your scenarios in your account, with the exception of the scenario ID. So it'll have like your base URL, the unique scenario ID, and then edit. And the reason I do that is because if I need to go and edit it, I want to find it really quickly. I don't want to have to go search for it because I just don't want to take any additional steps. I haven't connected it to software yet. Like even though It tells me that this is using Google Docs and Parser and the list. I probably could do a match on that, but for right now, it's not really adding a ton of value, but in the future, I might choose to map those things together. And then who created the scenario is here, and then the backup blueprint URL is here. So the URL is not going to change because we are using new versions inside of Google Drive, which I would much rather have just one link rather than 100 links. And if I am updating a file, the scenario already exists. It's already been updated in my Notion database. The next filter I have here is when you looked back at this search for a backup, does the page ID exist? Here I'm saying if the page ID does not exist, then that's the route that you take. In this one, I'm looking both for the page ID. In this case, it does exist. And the last edit date, I also want to look at anything that's changed within one day because I'm running this Monday through Friday. So if anything happened in the last 24 hours, then go on to the next step, which is update the file and then update the database. For updating the file, I've grabbed the blueprint file ID from that backup here, which we added in this step whenever we first added it into Notion from Make. And then the file name is actually going to be exactly the same. We're not changing anything. That's what I added here. And then I'm getting the file and re-uploading it as a new version. And then the database is going to be updated as well. I have to map the database ID, which is listed here. The searching for backups is where I grab that. And really all I'm doing here is changing the last edit date. And, you know, if the automation owner has changed, I think maybe I could probably also set the owner, because if we change the emoji here, maybe that's important. Usually the owner is going to stick with it the entire time, but you never know. Last edited by is going to go through that last switch here as well. And then it looks like that's probably it. Yeah, I don't think that there's really anything else here. I don't need to change the backup blueprint. It's going to stay exactly the same. So I'll go ahead and save this. And so if you look at this, I only really have 7 operations. And if this is new, I'll have 9 operations. Same thing if this exists. However, because I did think through this and said, maybe something's going to stay the same for a really long time. Maybe I create it once and I never go back and make any edits. There's no reason for me to have additional operations after this router and do any sort of updating because nothing has changed. I don't need to cost myself more money or take additional time for this. I'll show you what it looks like inside of my automation backups as well. So this is what it looks like when it actually drops it into Notion. So actually, I forgot I appended the scenario ID to the front of the name here, which is kind of cool. So it's easier for me to find, but I have the scenario ID, everything here. You can see it's dropped everything in here. The client here is us because the scenario is for us. And you can see everything else, like it's dropped all this stuff in. I have this automation cost in here as well, which I can walk through in another video, but you can see how much it cost me per month. And really this in the last month cost me $4. I had 2,100 operations. So if I start to see things like going crazy, like next month it's like $50, I'll know that something wild happened. I need to fix it. It sort of just gives me a pulse on issues that might be happening because I use the scenario consumption data inside of Make, but it's just not great. So hopefully this is really helpful for you and you're able to follow along and back up your own Make scenario so that you never lose anything important. I think all in all, this took me maybe 10 to 15 minutes to get going. It was really thinking about what information I wanted to get out of Make and where I wanted to put it. And then I was fiddling with the date formatting a little bit because I'm still a little shaky there. But Make has lots of really great information on their help docs. And again, shouting out to Andy O'Neill because his community is really great. And his videos that he produces are really great as well. Really rich and good information and detailed, but not too over the top. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.